Mark, welcome to the show.
Yigal, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited and honored. We had you are the author, one of the authors of Rocket Fuel. Every month in the Pawn Leaders Mastermind, we read a book. About 4 people recommended Rocket Fuel to us, so we had the members read it, and we absolutely loved it. So I reached out. You guys said yes, so I'm super excited.
Very cool. I love hearing that the book is connecting with folks and hopefully having an impact.
Yes, for sure. So for those of you who are listening, Rocket Fuel talks about the visionary and the integrator and how important those two are to making a company essentially grow and scale. So let's talk about first how you guys got to write the book. Where did the idea come from? And then we'll get into integrator, visionary, and how those two work together.
So full credit to my co-author, Gino Wickman, for really discovering and naming the visionary integrator structure. He saw it with his clients. He experienced it in one of his companies. And then when he and I connected, I had actually experienced it in my world as well. I'd had an integrator in one of my companies. And so when he put some language to it, it made sense for me. And so then, he sort of threw out the idea of, hey, let's write a book. And so through the book, we developed a structure around that relationship for how you take, two folks that are naturally wired very different and, will tend to want to butt heads and there'll be a lot of friction there. And we put a structure around that to really blend that friction, which could be, negative, into something really positive and powerful. And that's really what drives the relationship, drives the business to the higher level.
Love that. So let's get right into it. The visionary and the integrator. I'm sure you talk about this all day long. But in pawn, there's usually the owner,
right?
And the owner does everything.
Right.
And maybe that owner will hire a manager who was a great pawnbroker. And, then you've got, bigger stores and multi-chains who kind of have the idea of visionary and integrator. But let's talk about who's the visionary?
So the visionary is, a lot of times it's the founding entrepreneur, maybe the owner. A lot of times it is the owner or an owner. And typically they're the ones they're sort of the idea generators. They got lots of new approaches to throw out there. They're sort of looking down the road, seeing the future, figuring out where to position themselves to take full advantage of that. They're good with relationships, external relationships, closing big deals if that's part of your world. But they're not typically great at follow through. They're not typically great at all the details and all the stuff that really is important to sort of execute and take all these ideas, take this vision and make it happen. So that's sort of where the integrator comes in, right? They've got a different set of superpowers. They both have their superpowers. They both also have their kryptonite. And so the name of the game is getting the right two together in a way that they can both play what they're really great at. And that's when big stuff happens.
So you just described myself.
Good.
When it comes to visionary, and I was running the coaching consulting business for about 2 years by myself, and then I decided to hire on an assistant. And so a big shout out to Charlotte, who is my integrator, who keeps me accountable, makes sure that stuff gets done, and they're not just ideas. So let's get into that person. Who is the integrator, and why are they so important to an organization?
Yes. So like you said, the integrator is the one that makes it happen. They make it real. They work sort of harmoniously through and between the other players on the team, typically the other leaders on the team, to keep them aligned, keep them moving forward, hold them accountable. They sort of, beat the drum, set the cadence for the organization so that everything keeps moving and keeps working. And, it's like I said, it's very, very different. They're sort of in the middle where they've got to, work hard to stay on the same page with the visionary and make sure they're crystal clear on the vision, and then flip that around and sometimes translate that into language that the organization can actually understand and sink their teeth into and go do something with.
Love it. So you've got the visionary, like myself. The idea person has these crazy ideas. Sometimes the integrator comes in and says, love it, I'll take that vision and we'll actually put it into a game plan of what's possible to happen. And
right.
So my question is this: how do you get the two to coincide and work so well together if they're so different?
So we have a structure. We talk about the 5 rules and the 5 tools, and there's sort of, I should back up. There's sort of 3 stages to the whole journey. We think about it as crystallize, connect, and maximize. So crystallize is just get clear on the basic concepts. What is a visionary? What is an integrator? Like we're just talking about, enough so that someone can decide, is this something helpful for me? because it's not for everybody, right? So, but if it's something that's helpful for you, or you think it could be, the next phase is to connect. So how do we get matched up? How do we get paired up with this ideal counterpart? And then once we're connected, how do we maximize that relationship to make it something really powerful and really great instead of something that's just like this? So in the maximize phase, we talk about the 5 rules and the 5 tools. And so the 5 rules are basically the structure that we put around that relationship to blend that negative friction into something positive and powerful.
So thinking about this with my brother, I was partners with my brother in the pawn shop.
Okay.
And we were 2 visionaries.
Okay.
Trying to run an organization.
Yep.
And we were realizing that the organization we were successful, but we were butting heads. A lot of ideas were being thrown around, lack of action and consistency. And it wasn't until we brought in my cousin Adiz, who is a visionary, but he's also an integrator. I don't know if he can be both, but he took on the role of integrator and he just started putting things into play and making stuff happen. And it helped us grow and scale the business to what my brother has today.
Yeah, so there's lots of issues sort of embedded in that little story. One, someone, the last person. What was the name of the third person?
Adiz,
right? Yeah. So Adiz may be an integrator, maybe just more integrator than you guys were, right? So it's all a little bit relative, but it's important to just have somebody that's good at that stuff. And there's another factor here, which is owners. So when you have multiple owners involved, actually one of the 5 rules is, we call it the owner-employee rules of the game. And basically it says that, owners can't play by special rules. You can't pull out the owner card and go, well, I'm an owner. That doesn't apply to me. I'm going to do it this way. Yeah. In fact, there are only 2 rights of ownership. One right is that you are able to get your share of the profits, however that's set up. You have the right to that. Second one is that you have your right to your say or your vote in the major decisions that are assigned to ownership, which is not everything. It's the big stuff, right? It's, are we going to sell the business? Are we going to take on another equity partner? Are we going to buy a building? Are we going to, right? It's things like that. So you get your vote in that, but that's it. And it is not a right of ownership to be an employee in the company. In fact, it's a huge responsibility. And I would argue that an owner, if you're going to play as an employee of the company, you have to be the example that is, better than any employee we'd hire off the street. I mean, you really have to embody, this is how we want it to work. This is what we want it to look like. And I use the comparison of youth sports. So, I grew up with 3 sons. I coached all of them all the way through growing up, and ask any of them and they'll tell you I held them to a higher standard than any other kid on the team, and pushed them harder, and all that kind of stuff. Because if you're the coach, you get accused of special treatment, and the whole thing comes unwound. Same thing in a business, right? If you're an owner and you're getting special treatment, the integrity of everything you're trying to do starts to come apart. And so you really have to be willing to play by the rules as an employee. And then the last observation I would make on that one is, as an owner, if you're going to be an employee, you can be fired. You can be fired as an employee. If you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to play by those rules, then you're not the right person to have in that employee seat. So that was something that you've experienced version of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to dive into this real quick, because I love the fact that you said, if an owner is going to play as an employee, does that basically mean like taking on the tasks? An owner should be a visionary as to where the company is going to go. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So owners don't have to do anything. Gotcha. So it's a different hat, right? So let's keep them separate. So ownership means that you're saying, look, we want to grow. We want to be profitable. Here's kind of what we'd like to see happen. And then they empower a team in the organization to go and do that, right? And so they may, and a lot of times in smaller companies, they for sure do go, you know what, I'm going to help. I want to be part of it. I want to do this. I want to do that. So they go in and they become, in that sense, an employee, but it's 2 different hats that they're wearing, and they shouldn't be mixed up. So when you're playing employee, you don't wear that owner hat. And then you come wear the owner hat and don't be the employee. So you want to keep them separate. And so maybe an owner steps into the visionary seat. Maybe an owner sits in that integrator seat. Maybe an owner is in charge of, store operations or whatever another role might be. And so it's just about keeping that separate so we can be really clear and play consistently by the rules across the board.
And I love the fact that you said you can't pull the owner card.
Right.
I think a lot of business owners do that, and in their lack of consistency, and then they get angry at the team's lack of consistency.
Yeah, and their teams are totally frustrated by that, right? You got to set the example. Do it the way you want to see everybody else do it. If you do that, it's powerful.
So let's talk about this. You are an owner of a company. You've got this vision of growing the business, and you want to bring on a second in command, an integrator, somebody who is going to do what you're not going to do, right? What are you looking for? Obviously, what we'll do is we'll give them the link to the test. I know you guys have like an online test.
Yeah,
but what is it that you're looking for when you're the owner of a company, you've got this vision, and you want to bring somebody in who's going to make that vision happen?
Good. So I want you to think about it as a 3-piece puzzle, okay? And so the first 2 pieces are the visionary and the integrator themselves. And, the edge where they connect, where that 2-piece puzzle connects. For the visionary, we've got to define the shape of that edge, which means taking the assessments, the visionary integrator assessments. That's a great first step. Maybe some profiling things like, Culture Index or Colby or Strength Finders. All of those are good to kind of really understand yourself and kind of your style and what you love, what you don't love, what you're great at, what you're not so good at. All that stuff to define that edge first. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the business. And, we talk about the visionary spectrum on the visionary side and the integrator spectrum on the integrator side. So on the visionary side, it's really about how much visionary energy does this business need? And if you're a single site operator, and you're in a market that's not very competitive, there's not a lot of moving parts. It's not changing very fast. Maybe you need less visionary in a market like that. If you're a multi-unit operator and things are changing super fast and it's really dynamic and doing a lot of different things, maybe there's more vision that's required. So think about how you as the visionary fit into that, and really, are you right for that? So we understand the visionary shape, we understand the business need, and then on the integrator side of the business, some businesses they just need like a project manager type of integrator just to kind of pull together some simple things and people and get things done. But there's other businesses that they really, they've in multiple markets, they've got, big regulatory problems or compliance things, really dynamic, really complex, really changing rapidly. They need a much more robust integrator, right? And so we got to understand that. And if you kind of back into it, so we got the visionary piece laid down, we've got the business design piece laid down. So we understand this edge and we understand this edge, and we sort of back into then what's the shape of that integrator that we need to go look for. So now we know that. So it's all about getting the word out, right? So how do we get somebody to help us? And there's sort of a range of solutions. One is you can go find an integrator, or not an integrator, a recruiter. There are recruiters now that specialize in integrator search. Oh, wow. And they'll help you find an integrator. I mean, they're really good at it, and that's what they're focused on. So you can go that far. You can, in between, you can kind of do a fractional solution where you find somebody that'll be an integrator for you 1 day a week, 2 days a week, something like that. And sometimes those relationships grow. So they come in for a limited amount of time, but then we sort of expand that over time because it works. You feel good about it. Ultimately, they may become a full-time integrator, sort of like dating, right? Yeah. Until you really get married. And then, the base level is just to put the word out there through your professional network. Hey, I'm looking for an integrator. Here's what an integrator looks like. And, like we have a sample job description on the site that you can put out there just so people kind of have an idea what you're looking for. And then you'll be amazed at how many folks, once they know, oh yeah, I know somebody that looks like that, then they can kind of send you candidates. We have lots of people that find them that way. And then the thing that we're trying to enable is the community approach. So we've got, through Rocket Fuel University, we have a community called the Launchpad, which is really for all visionaries and integrators and other folks who are interested in helping those groups to gather together. And we have folks in that community where, a visionary says, hey, I'm looking for an integrator, or an integrator says, hey, I'm looking for a visionary. And so we literally, kind of grassroots connections are made, and they end up together. Yeah.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this question. I'm thinking about the pawnbrokers, one store operator, might be him or herself, 2 or 3 employees, and is thinking like, I need an integrator. I need somebody to come in and really help me out, but I can't afford that person at the moment.
Yep.
My question is it costing them more money to not bring the person in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, one of the, we talk about the readiness factors of visionaries, and one of the readiness factors is financial. And of course, it's very easy to see the expense side of the equation, right? So, well, it's going to cost me X to bring somebody in to do this or that. And so you can see that, you can see the pain, you can see the, that money going out. And so you've got to really look at the impact side. And a way to do that is, in EOS, we talk about having an issues list. So all the different things that we got to solve, whether it's a problem that we've got to make go away, or an opportunity that we've got to figure out how to tap into, or something we got to fix, whatever it is. So a great approach for a visionary is to look at that issue list and go, all right, which one of these things would be solved if I had a great integrator? And kind of check those off, and then go down that list again and go, all right, what would the financial impact be to me if that was truly solved? And kind of, ballpark some kind of dollar figure out there, and then go back and add that up. And most of the time you'll be kind of blown away by the size of that number. And then you look at that number in comparison to whatever it's going to cost you. And usually that makes the ROI pretty clear.
I want to give a shout out to Melanie, who's a huge fan of the book. She's a mastermind member. And her question is, let me bring it up real quick. She says that, I have an integrator and I don't want to start from scratch, but I want to be able to increase the relationship between myself and that integrator. How do I do that?
So, again, it's all about the 5 rules. So I would, and she's obviously read the book. And so really focus on the discipline of the 5 rules. And actually, now that you made me think about this, there's another tool. Actually, I have a copy of it. So this is called the Rocket Fuel Power Index. Okay. And so there's 8 different mindsets on here, and you go through and grade yourself. So she can take that tool, or any of your folks can take that tool. And what you want to do is the visionary fills it out and says, all right, here's where I think we are. Here's where I think we are on this one, or whatever. And then the other one fills it out. And then they sit down in one of their same page meetings and they compare. And maybe on one, they're seeing it exactly the same way. And maybe on another one, the visionary's seeing it higher, the integrator's seeing it lower, and they can talk about that. Why are we seeing this differently here? How do we get aligned? And then for the ones where they're lower on, they can prioritize those and go, all right, what are we going to do? How do we move this number from a 7 to a 9? What has to happen? And they can really focus in on driving those key levers to maximize power. That's really what it's all about. It's about how do we maximize the power of that particular duo. And
one thing that comes to mind is that whenever I've spoken to a pawnbroker who's very, very successful, there's always a second in command, a right hand, an integrator who has put the vision forward and made it happen. And they always say, I just hired somebody smarter than me. I hired somebody who's going to do what I had in my head. And I just couldn't get it out, or I couldn't make it happen. They were the ones who were able to come in and make it happen. Have you seen that? I know that the Rocket Fuel talks about this. Are most of the successful companies that you've worked with have that visionary integrator relationship so well handled that that's allowed them to grow?
Yeah, and so, but it's a process, right? So it's been very often that when I first meet them, they're not both there. Most often, when I first encounter them, it's the visionary sort of sitting in both of those seats and kind of trying their best to do them both, and as a result, probably not doing either one of them very well. Because they're not very good at being an integrator, which is frustrating for them. It's also frustrating for their team, right? And because they're kind of spending time and energy trying to do that, they're taking it away from being the good visionary that they need to be. And so it's just kind of bringing it all down. So that's kind of step 1, is make it visible. If you're sitting in both seats right now, that's okay. Make it visible. And then look at how you're doing in each one of those. Think about which one you really want to do, and then go about solving to get the other one. And then once we get the other one in place, and once we follow the process and we really strengthen that relationship to get it to do what it's capable of doing, that's when we begin to see the breakthrough in terms of results.
Love it. I'm thinking about the pawn industry, and one of the biggest epidemics in the pawn industry is micromanagement. And the owner having to have their hand in everything. and wanting to make the decision for everything or everybody.
Mm.
When you have a visionary and integrator, there's got to be a way for them to work where there's one trust, right? And there's also accountability. What have you encountered when you come into a company to consult, and you've got the visionary or even the integrator who's micromanaging to such an extent that doesn't allow the other person to do what they need to do?
Yeah, so this goes back to the same page meeting. So it's about trust. I thought when we first started working on the book, I thought there was going to be an issue with visionaries and control and just wanting to control everything. But what I found, story after story after story, was it really wasn't about that. It's about trust, because something's happened in their past where they gave something to somebody, trusted something with someone, and then that person didn't do very well. That person took their favorite toy and dropped it and broke it. And they have that image sort of burned on their brain. And so they're really sort of panicked about letting stuff go. So the integrator has to be very intentional about building that trust foundation. And you do that through this cycle of same page meetings where you say, look, you're really micromanaging me on this. And the visionary says, well, here's why, because, you scare me when you do this or that. And they talk out whatever they need to talk out to create the space to let them do it, to let them try. And then they do okay, right? And it doesn't get dropped and broken. And then the visionary has that new memory. And so it's a gradual process over time to kind of unwind that. But the thing that I want visionaries to hear and think about is, your power is if you can get things done through others. If you're always having to go check, if you're always having to go do, then you're not really creating capacity in your business, and you're not really maximizing value in your business. So you got to find a way to get stuff done through others.
You said something that sparked a question to me. You said memory. And I also think that a lot of times small business owners, the ones that have some success, that have made money, the memory is ingrained that, what I'm doing currently, micromanaging, doing it all myself, I've made some money. I've been successful.
Right.
And so trying to erase that from them I've seen it's very, very hard.
Yep. Yeah. So the reality is most of these folks have done it themselves from the jump. And so out of pure necessity to survive, they've had to become okay, if not good, at a lot of these things that aren't natural things for them. And so this next stage is about recognizing, you know what, I can do a lot of stuff, but here's the stuff that I really love, and here's the stuff that I'm really great at. And for this other stuff, there's somebody else that's actually, I'm okay at it, but they're actually awesome at it. They're actually really great at it. And, I think back on my own personal career, and I used to think I was a pretty good marketer, but then I start working with people who that's what they do. And they run circles around me. They make what I do look like, child's work. And same thing, frankly, with being a manager. I've managed a lot of people. And I thought I was an okay manager, but now I look at people that are really great managers of people, and they make it look easy. Can I do that? Maybe, but it's really hard for me. I've decided that my optimal span of control is about one. So I can be a decent manager for probably one person. If there's more than one person I've got to manage, they're all going to be suffering a little bit. Yeah.
I want to go back to one thing before I let you go, because this has been amazing. I'm thinking about the ones who are listening who have a visionary and they have an integrator already. Okay. And you talked about how each have to play their own role and not, pull the owner's card or whatever that is.
Yep.
Have you seen that when an integrator is able to call out an owner or is able to say, hey, you didn't get me this, we're not doing this, that the relationship has strengthened or the business has grown, or it's caused friction?
So I would say it's absolutely essential that they do that. And not just, randomly or without reason, but, we want an eye-level relationship. So it shouldn't be the visionary looking down on the integrator and the integrator kind of looking up and sort of the puppet of the visionary, but it's really eye level. We're collaborators in this, and the strength of the integrator needs to match the strength of the visionary. Otherwise, the visionary will just run them over, right? And so we got to be able to kind of lean on each other to talk about, address the things that we need to address to actually, make them work and get them going. So it's got to match up. So in that context, when the integrator leans back on the visionary and says, what about this? then that's a strengthening thing, because that's all healthy and focused and moving us forward in the right direction.
Love that. Mark, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I think that everybody listening needs to go to, I think, Amazon and pick up, that's for the YouTube crowd, Rocket Fuel, the book.
Awesome.
And make sure that you visit, what's the website that they can go to take
So
the test?
rocketfuelnow.com has everything Rocket Fuel. You go to markcwinners.com if you want to see, kind of everything I'm working on. And then, at Mark C. Winners on all the socials if anybody's trying to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. It's been amazing, an honor. And we'll talk to you soon. For those of you who are here listening, make sure to stay tuned for the next episode of the Pawn Leaders Podcast. And check us out on Facebook. Go to Pawn Leaders Community. We have an incredible group with over 1,000 pawnbrokers. They're talking about books, leadership, marketing, and strategy. Stay safe, stay healthy. Love you all.